Banerjee sir have also joined. Sir, I think we should start the session, sir.
Yeah, we are late.
Okay.
Of course, if all have joined.
Dhananjay, please start.
Yes, sir. A very warm greetings to all our esteemed and learned panelists, faculty members, and participants who have joined us today. I, Shri, welcome you all to the 7th session of the 3rd International Conference on Mediation, organized by Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, and Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, Institution of Eminence, University of Delhi, in association with Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, Supreme Court of India. The topic of this session is role of mediation in insurance, banking, and financial services. To discuss the various aspects of it, we have a stellar list of distinguished speakers, with each of them being an expert in their own domains. I humbly invite Honorable Mr. Justice Vivek Singh Thakur. Born and brought up in Bilaspur, Himachal Pradesh, he has served the state of Himachal Pradesh as an Assistant Advocate General, Additional Advocate General, and Senior Panel Counsel to the Union of India till elevation as a Judge of Himachal Pradesh High Court. I also invite Honorable Mr. Justice Venkateswarlu Nimmagadda. Sir is currently serving as a judge at Andhra Pradesh High Court as our co-chair. I also invite our admirable special guest, Dr. Ranjeet Mehta. Sir is an industry advisor and a fellow at International Visitors Leadership Program of the US government. Dr. Mehta has represented Indian industry in many government and parliamentary committees and has been instrumental in addressing various policy-related issues in several sectors. I also invite Shri Vikramjeet Banerjee. Sir is currently serving as an Additional Solicitor General of India. He regularly lectures in various leading universities, institutions, and think tanks across the country and has written extensively on law, culture, religion, and development. I would also like to welcome Professor Dr. Gunjan Gupta. Ma'am is a professor at Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, and Joint Proctor of University of Delhi. She is also a university representative member in governing body of Lakshmibai College. She holds LLM and PhD from Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. She has a number of research papers to her credit in journals of national and international repute and has participated in many national and international seminars and conferences. I welcome you all. Without any further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Gunjan Gupta to formally welcome our panelists and guests. Ma'am, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you, Dhananjay. Once again, good afternoon to everybody. I, Professor Gunjan Gupta, would like to heartily welcome our eminent guest today, Dr. Ranjeet Mehta, Senior Industry Advisor, Shri Vikramjeet Banerjee, Additional Solicitor General of India, Honorable Mr. Justice Venkateswarlu Nimagada, Judge Andhra Pradesh High Court, the co-chair of the session, and Honorable Mr. Justice Vivek Singh Thakur, Judge Himachal Pradesh High Court, the chair of the session. Thank you all, sir. I also extend my warm welcome to all my dear colleagues from the university and all the participants of the conference. I'm extremely delighted today to initiate this session titled Role of Mediation in Insurance, Banking, and Financial Services. In recent times, mediation and other alternative dispute resolution mechanism has evolved as an effective alternative to court litigation. The banking, insurance, and financial sector have also begun to welcome these mechanisms with open arms. The acceptance of mediation is premised on the fact that it is simple, cost-effective, and most importantly, the process of resolving disputes is brisk and expeditious. The acceptance and popularity of the mechanisms is reflected through the increasing instances of matters resorting to these mechanisms. There are a number of crucial factors that have recently catalyzed the increased use of alternate dispute resolution mechanisms, internationalization of banking and financial transactions, increase the complexity of disputes, the lack of consistency in our court decisions, demand for flexibility, party autonomy, and confidentiality are inter alia very pertinent issues in this regard. In fact, the financial legal instruments that are created in recent times, like loan agreements, mortgages, debentures, equipment leasing agreements, check purchase agreements, insurance policies, advance payment, and performance bonds, mostly iterate clauses highlighting the multi-tiered dispute resolution mechanisms. More importantly, even in the absence of such clauses, there is no prohibition against resorting to any one of them. It would not be wrong to comment that the legislature has also recognized its significance and has accordingly incorporated provisions for mediation in the Commercial Codes Act, the Companies Act, the Consumer Protection Act, and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act, etc. Thus, the effectiveness of the alternate dispute resolution mechanisms are not only recognized by the business world, but are also being largely acknowledged by the lawmakers. However, even though the increased use of mediation and other alternate dispute resolution mechanisms simplifies the mechanism and increases the efficiency, there are definitely certain challenges that are yet to be resolved in this matter. The financial transactions involves risk and its management, both pertaining to the investment itself as well as the counterparty risk. The existing legal frameworks has beckoned the industry to strategies and manage the counterparty risk in certain formats. However, the underlying idea of mediation is to form new agreements, adjusting contractual obligations. And this is largely reconcilable with the risk management that is practiced under the legal framework. Therefore, only the purview of mediation, only the disputes that do not overlap with the issues pertaining to transfers of financial assets can be brought under the purview of mediation. This implies that the transactions that are financial in nature must be subjected to the procedures under the various laws like SARFAESI, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, etc. With this, I look forward to a meaningful discussion on this subject matter. Thank you. Over to you, Dhananjay.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out your time and joining us today. Now I would like to request Dr. Ranjeet Mehta to address the virtual gathering. Sir, the virtual floor is yours.
Dhananjay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable judges, Professor Gunjan, and all the very distinguished participants, and Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, the director of this program. I'm sorry that I had to rush from the golf course. I was playing golf, but I was told that I have to give a talk on this. So I'll not be able to, use my video due to constraint of this bandwidth. In any case, this is a very, very interesting subject. And thank you very much, Delhi University, for having invited me here. If you look at in past 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has been extremely unfortunate and has necessitated the change, an inevitable change that justice delivery system all over the world have actually embraced is integration of technology. Due to this, justice is no longer associated with a place like courts, but rather as a service that can be provided at a party's convenience. In India, the judiciary has led the way in adopting technology solutions to keep the system accessible even while safety measures altered routines. The judiciary's leadership and trailblazing efforts in these difficult times has legitimized the use of technology to enable dispute resolution and thereby access to justice. If you look at the alternative dispute resolution mechanism, it is not only a dispute resolution, I'll say it is also dispute containment and dispute avoidance, and also a promotion of general legal health in the country, and possibility of remote resolution, especially while we are using the technology. And when you look at, especially at the insurance sector, due to the pandemic, we have seen the sudden upsurge in the insurance claims. It is not only the severity, but also the volumes have gone by enormously. And if you look at from industry point of view, in ease of doing business, out of 190 countries, India was 142nd in 2013. But today we stand at 63rd in ease of doing business. And if you look at, especially out of those 10 parameters which are used by the World Bank for ease of doing business calculations, then out of that, one is contract enforcement. And in contract enforcement, out of 190 country, today we stand at 163. There we have to make a lot of progress. I think there comes the role of dispute resolution. And we have also seen that the disputes have gone by in the insurance sector in recent times due to various problems that we have seen in past a few years. Now, the culmination of factors: increased appetite for change, the need to decongest our codes, the demands for affordable and effective dispute resolution mechanism, and lastly, the availability of technology has prepared India for a potential game-changing transformation in the justice delivery framework. And I would say that online dispute resolution have become very, very popular during this time. And ODR is often simplistically understood to mean EADR or ADR, that is enabled through technology. However, its potential benefits extend far beyond its genesis. Parent system, namely ADR, ODR, can help in not just dispute resolution, but also in dispute containment, as I said. So overall, when we see that, dispute resolution has to, we have to increase this framework all over the country, and we have to make sure that people have trust in the dispute resolution mechanism. There, I think that we need to work a lot. And today, I'm very happy that industry is picking up dispute resolution very winningly. And it is encouraging to see people coming for dispute resolution in alternative dispute resolution mechanism, especially in this banking and financial system. And there are a few challenges. As I told you, as far as the online dispute resolution is concerned, still we have to see that digital infrastructure is lacking in our country. We have to pay attention to the digital infrastructure. Otherwise, people if we need to have people more confidence on this system, then I think that the transparency is extremely critical. With these few words, I'm here to listen, to understand more from the honorable judges who are here, the very distinguished people who have joined this conference today. And I thank University of Delhi and the Institute of Eminence for inviting me today at this very prestigious conference. And I thank one and all for listening to me. Thank you very much. And I apologize for not having made my video on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights and discussing about the challenges of dispute resolution in the industry. With this, I would like to request Shri Vikramjeet Banerjee to address the virtual gathering. Sir, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you for this invite to this very, very eminent conference. And I thank, of course, it's an honor always to come back and speak at the university, and it's possibly the greatest university which produces the greatest legal minds in this country. So it's always both an honor, and it also is an indicator of why this topic is extremely important and why we need to address it. Before I start, of course, I would like to thank my respects to Dr. Mehta, Dr. Gupta, Justice Thakur, Justice Venkateswarlu. And having been asked to speak on the topic, I think I'll sort of put a small talk as to what are the issues which I want to flag. Mediation, as we all know, is extremely important in the subject area which we are discussing for a number of reasons. First is, increasingly the world, especially corporate litigation, there is no time for litigation. Litigation is in many ways time consuming. We know that. We know by lived experience how long it takes. So to that extent, it is not a road which we want to go through. The alternate to litigation, as we've also seen in India, especially our experience has been that we sort of came up with the proposition that maybe arbitration in some way makes it easier to resolve disputes which take a longer period of time in litigation. But I think, again, I'm talking about lived experience, and I'm sure all of you who are in litigation would also realize that it does take time, and it's increasingly taking more and more time. The other issue, I think, which sort of facilitates mediation and why mediation, especially in these sectors, are important, is because most of the time the courts do not have the real needed financial technical expertise to solve these issues. I am speaking as a lawyer who appears in these matters. I'm speaking also as a person who's seen these matters in an advisory capacity. And in my view, these are very technical matters. And these technical matters, sometimes it's very difficult to translate it into a language which can be conveyed to the court. So in many ways, a mediation which is sort of fronted by experts, would be better able, according to me, to solve these problems. There is, of course, the third thing, which is usually flag marked, and which I'm torn about, because it may or may not be, there's a lack of consistency in questions of decision making, which means there are conflicting decisions of courts, of various high courts, and therefore it becomes, whether you're in arbitration or whether it be you're in conciliation, whether it be on litigation or arbitration, it becomes very difficult to resolve problems because there are consistently conflicting judgments. The other reason, which sort of, as a person involved in litigation, we see, is that in cases of mediation, there are fewer disruptions in the business. So a business can continue, while in litigation there is a scope of, because you can take out injunctions, even Section 9 application, arbitration. You can take out injunction. There is a chance of the flow of business, the business of commerce getting disrupted. I think in many ways, in the pace of the world that we live in today, it makes therefore much more sense to go in for a mediation process, which again, another reason is, which always comes up, or expected to come up with a workable and flexible solution. Now, as we know, all of us who are involved in litigation, and I'm speaking from a perspective as a person involved in litigation, is that you get your answers. It's either here or there. But solutions in business is never a black and white matter. In many ways, it is a solution or a resolution which facilitates business. So in that respect, I think mediation is extremely important, and it's great that it's getting the role which it was envisaged to do. I've been also two or 3 days before, we've been hearing of eminent judges of the Supreme Court who are talking about how, including the Chief Justice, of how important mediation is as a process and how it's extremely important. I think in this sector, mediation is extremely crucial because of 2 reasons. I think in terms of globalization, in globalization, mediation is extremely important across borders in this sector. It's a better way to settle disputes, across countries, across barriers. And also because the decision-making process, as I flagged, Mark, is in consonance with the increasing smoothness of the way which finance sector works. It cannot afford disruptions, because disruptions in many ways, as I flagged before, it works against business interests. The government, as we know, has tried to incorporate mediation in a number of places increasingly, because that's extremely crucial as a way to resolve disputes in the future, especially in commercial areas, especially in areas of banking, of finance, of insurance sectors. We know, and I'm just flagging this, I'm sure all of you know, and I'm sure all of you are aware of these things, but I'll just flag it for the sake of this discussion. In the Commercial Courts Act in 12A, pre-institution of suit, there has the contemplation of mediation has been brought into. The Companies Act and the Company Mediation Conciliation rules, especially under Section 442, sort of envisages, and I'm not going into detail because that's not the scope of this talk here, brings in this concept of mediation, and which can be referred in Section 442, which can be referred to at any point of time. Of course, the government has also come out with companies' mediation and conciliation rules, which sort of lays out the way and method to go about this mediation conciliation process. In respect to banking and insurance sector, we all know, and I'm not again going to flag it in great detail, but we all know that of the banking and insurance ombudsman, and every one of them have their own schemes. The banking ombudsman scheme and the insurance ombudsman scheme, which have, according to RBI reports, have been substantially successful in solving consumer disputes between small consumers. And this is not large ones, not intra-sibling corporate disputes, but even between small consumers and the banks and insurance companies through a process of ombudsman-led mediations, whereby ombudsmen have led the mediation process and facilitated mediation. So that's, according to me, that's in some ways irrespective. And I know that there are issues with the banking ombudsman and insurance ombudsman schemes, but I think we also tend to, at times, as litigation lawyers, we tend to devalue the solution capability, which is usually facilitated by these schemes, and which, as we can see, has been in many ways very, very successful. So I would suggest that that's an area which has lots of lessons to be learned. We tend to disregard it as litigators, we tend to disregard it as lawyers, and we tend to sort of, in the same way as lawyers, of eminent lawyers, we sort of, or lawyers of a certain value who appear in certain matters, tend to say that local adalats do not work. But I know for a fact that being in the government and saying, and the amount of cases that we handle, that for consumers, these are issues which can be handled. And at the retail level of banking, of insurance, where is the interface between consumers and companies, I think mediation is a good process, but it has to be facilitated as the schemes do. But that's a good thing, and that's how it should be retained. Of course, and the last but not the least, I think that's the scope of a large amount of discussion throughout the sections, is the mediation bill. That's the elephant in the room. That's what we have been discussing. I think in many ways it requires a little bit of discussion, but I think that's a fantastic thing if it comes through. And I think that would institutionalize the process of mediation in litigation, in the litigation process, I think that would be crucial. I think that in many ways has the scope of changing the commercial and financial landscape of this country, making it much more business friendly and making it much more, help us in going for, higher business rankings in the world. What about the future? I think, it is important because I think, again, in future, we will obviously need mediation for the purposes because it's non-contentious. And business, you require business, not contention, not contentious issues, not issues which can be fought over because that detracts from business. It is friendly. So in business, it's better to even if you want to part, it's better to part on friendlier terms rather than, again, being involved in this contentious process. It's faster because we know litigation can drag on for quite some time. It is solution-oriented and expert-driven, increasingly expert-driven. So it's solutional. You can get a solution out of it. It's not only, okay, this is the decision now, you figure out what's going to happen afterwards. It's solution-oriented, something which can come out of it. And today there is the increasing demand which is arising from this sector, especially to have this sort of a process which can result in solutions. And I think an issue which I would one of the areas which I would like to sort of flag is the fact that, even in the IBC proceedings, we have seen that, there is the scope and there is the scope whereby possibly mediation can solve these issues. We know that a foolproof act, and again, this is something which I'll say, which is a flag mark today, why mediation is again important, is because IBC, we were told, is a foolproof act. It is a foolproof act whereby everything just goes naturally and in a flow. But we have seen that even IBC is not a foolproof act in that respect, and which leads to litigation. So if we can incorporate, especially in the areas of insolvency, a mediation process in a dispute, alternate dispute resolution, which is non-litigious and which takes into account the disputes which are arising, which may be genuine. I think that would be in many ways a great service. I know for a fact that even if IBC actually works for companies, when it comes for personal insolvency, maybe there is a greater need of flexibility. Maybe there's a greater need of understanding, especially when people conduct businesses and small businesses and businesses fail, especially in the areas of small businesses. So to that extent, getting mediation involved in these areas, especially in resolving these insolvency disputes and possibly for small businesses, I think is extremely important, and we should look towards that. Globally, I'll just flag this before I end. We have seen this in major disputes like the Lehman Brothers, which was solved through the mediation process. And we have also seen that the EU has increasingly sort of tried to incorporate mediation every step of the way for resolving commercial disputes because, and they say that especially in the sector of banking, insurance, and according to the EU, it's been a success, and it sort of looks as the way forward towards bringing more and more mediation into these sectors so that the problems can be resolved. In conclusion, I would only say this, that it's extremely important, both at the level of large commercial entities trying to resolve disputes, as well as at the level of the consumer interaction with commercial entities, that mediation be incorporated into the dispute resolution processes. And the largest reason is because it's a flexible solution. It's a solution which ensures that it's a win-win solution. And it's a solution which is more in terms with our Indian conception of justice, which is not rights-based, but is a concept of justice-based. So as Indians, and I say this as an experience of being in the court, we value justice more than we value rights. And a justice is holistic. A justice is solution-oriented. I can go into a lot of Indian jurisprudence to sort of say that, but I'm not going into it. So I think this is a solution which is acceptable to all and a solution which works. I think this is the way of the future. And thank you again for inviting me. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be here. And thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for highlighting that how mediation is solution oriented. And I would like to respectfully borrow a line from your speech that solutions to business matters are not always black and white. So thank you so much, sir, for taking out your time and joining us in our discussions today. Now I would like to request Honorable Mr. Justice Venkateswarlu Nimmagadda to address the virtual gathering. Lordship, the floor is yours.
So, good afternoon, all of you. My learned brother, with Justice Vivek Singh Thakur ji, and other esteemed Justice Vikramjeet Banerjee, Dr. Ranjeet Mehta ji, and Shri, and Gunjan Gupta ji. Good evening, good afternoon for all of you. Pardon me for the reason today I didn't receive the schedule of today's schedule. That's why I thought that I'm an only participant in the conference, but I didn't. Now just now I came to know I'm a speaker in this conference. That's why I didn't get any material, or I didn't work on something to put forth before you any material, any examples or the out of my experience, the things which can be which can be for betterment of this remediation process. And for pardon me, for once again I'm requesting you, all of you, for pardon me because lack of schedule, I didn't without any special material and without some examples, I can't speak more than this. But I can say two things in general parlance. As of now, whatever development has been taken place in respect of this mediation process, which is one of the alternative dispute resolution methods. It is to some, we can say to some extent, this was developed in this in particular in insurance and as well as banking. Apart from other commercial agreements and other things, also this the mediation process was developed to some extent, but it requires more and more development, even more and more development. As of now, what I observed, what I got the information, but this mediation process mainly concentrated in metro cities and capital cities of the in India, but that to be extended to even B cities and C cities for more development and infrastructure for this providing the mediation process centers should be established by the stakeholders. With these words, I am concluding my remarks, and I am very much thankful to the organizers for providing this opportunity to participate in this conference. But being a listener, I enlightened very well regarding the mediation process, how it is taking place, how to be taking place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining today. And thank you for highlighting that how mediation as a process can expand its scope to semi-urban and rural areas of the India itself. So, Lordship, thank you for your speech and discussing your valuable inputs with us. Now, I would like to request Honorable Mr. Justice Vivek Singh Thakur to address the virtual gathering. Lordship, the virtual floor is yours.
सभी को नमस्कार. My brother Justice, am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes,
Am I
sir, you
audible?
can. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
नमस्कार, नमस्कार, सभी को नमस्कार. My brother Venkateswarlu Nimagada,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vikramjeet Banerjee, Dr. Ranjeet Mehta, Professor Dr. Gunjan, Gupta, Dhananjay ji, faculties of the university, and all participants. As a matter of fact, every judge has a problem, as Venkateswarlu has expressed, that they don't find time to go through the papers, particularly when court work is so high. However, I would like to share my views on the issue because it's entirely a new issue, mediation in insurance, banking and financial services. Because in normal litigation, we used to apply such methods, the conciliation, mediation in matrimonial disputes, in land disputes, because human being is a social creature which is living in society since ancient times with interdependence on each other. To cater the needs of life, transactions among the members of society are inevitable. Transactions, economic in nature, are also part of such transactions. Earlier, such transactions were amongst individuals, but with the increase of other modern activities, including industrial activities, economic transactions also increased tremendously. With developments by passage of time, institution of money lenders was replaced by financial institutions such as banks, etc., for providing and raising loans ranging from smallest amount to huge amount. Insurance companies providing future security depending upon investment in terms of premium have also joined the financial institutions. Economic transactions based on certain terms are bound to cause certain dispute for various reasons, like non-payment of loan in specified time, or non-payment of loan at all, or sometimes breach of terms which are agreed between the parties at the time of entering into the contract. For resolution of such disputes, necessity of law and courts has evolved. And on enactment of law, establishment of court and establishment of courts, adjudication of such disputes started. None of us is oblivious about the huge areas of pending cases in courts and long time taken for adjudication of such disputes in regular courts because of unprecedented explosion of litigation. Courts are overburdened. Number of judges is extremely less than the requisite strength. The mounting areas of the cases are causing snail pace progress of adjudication of cases, leading to discontentment amongst common litigant and also resulting business losses to institutions like banks, financial institutions and insurance companies. Courts are overcrowded, but litigants want their conflicts to be resolved quickly and fairly. The courts have their own limitations because of definite time-consuming procedure, and which is required to be followed before recording findings even in a small dispute. Today, on an average, a case filed in India continues for minimum 4-5 years, and losing party on either side keeps challenging the decision until all forms are exhausted and process continues to go on and on. However, on the contrary, a mediation can resolve the dispute in about 2 to 3 hours, and in very complex cases, it can go up to about 3 months. Recently, Delhi High Court has aptly noted that India has backlog of 2.8 crore cases. And in order to clear such a backlog, one would clearly require more than 464 years. So far as mediation is concerned, it is because of the aforesaid reasons, it is emerging as an alternative dispute resolution procedure, and which is a shift from adversarial litigation in which parties negotiate voluntarily through a mutually selected mediator or neutral in lieu of litigation. Although mediation is an entirely consequential and private process, consensual and private process, and if successful, it can produce binding agreements. And in the sometimes cases are when pending in the court, such agreements between the parties forms the part of the decree. Such agreement will generally be in the form of contract and will be legally enforceable. Parties often prefer to mediate dispute in order to avoid the cost of litigation, to negotiate in a private atmosphere, and to reach fair and effective outcome of in a brief period of time. Mediation is a voluntary and can be used to resolve a complex dispute involving multiple financial institutions. The financial crisis has produced and continues to produce a significant amount of litigation among the members of the financial service industry. The enormous costs of litigation have prompted many parties to pursue alternative dispute resolution procedure, including mediation. While no method of resolving the dispute will eliminate the litigation overhang, prudent use of mediation can and has resolved disputes quickly, efficiently, and fairly. Mediation may be used in almost every type of dispute or transaction, ranging from simple small claim case to most complex commercial dispute between large institutions. Mediation as an industry has grown over the years from being confined to a few specialized fields to being effectively applied in almost any legal dispute. Here, I am proud to quote here this fact that adjudication of dispute by conciliation was in vogue in the state of Himachal Pradesh from very beginning. And taking note thereof, the Law Commission of India in its 29th report dated 8th August 1988 had recognized the adjudication of disputes by way of conciliation in the state of HP and had suggested to have similar adjudicatory system throughout the country. Because our courts in India were and are clogged with heavy areas of the cases, and there was need to devise effective alternative option to litigation to ease the clogged judicial system, and it led to amendment of the Code of Civil Procedure by inserting section 89 read with Order 10 Rule 1A to 1C, vesting authority in the courts to refer the cases for settlement outside the court. Honorable Chief Justice, has also recently, I think during last week, has said that mediation as a concept is deeply embedded into the Indian ethos and can be described as a tool of social justice in Indian context. Quote, mediation can be described as a tool of social justice in the Indian context. Such a party-friendly mechanism ultimately upholds the rule of law by providing an incentive for parties to utilize their autonomy to the fullest to arrive at the just and equitable outcome. India is a home to many identities, religions, and cultures, which contributes to its unity through diversity, and this is where the rule of law with an assurance sense of justice and fairness come into play. He further said, Mahabharata is an example of an early attempt at mediation as a conflict resolution tool, where Lord Krishna attempted to mediate the dispute between the Pandavas and Kauravas. And he recalled that failure of mediation in Mahabharata led to disastrous consequences. I would add to it that not only in Mahabharata, the similar example is in Ramayana also, when Hanumana and Angad, while in Lanka before the war, had advised the Ravan to have a dialogue and to resolve the issue, but it refused to do so. Result is known to all. And it is not only in Ramayana or Mahabharata. Practically also, when we go to the history, visit the historical books, the concept of mediation, we found that it is not something novel in the Indian context, and it has been in place for long. It is a mode of dispute resolution that the Indians have been traditionally using during the ancient times, where the elders used to resolve the disputes. Further, in the Indian villages, it was done with the help of panchayats. But with the advent of British rule in India and Anglo-Saxon dispute resolution came up, and culture of the mediation began to fade away. During the ancient Hindu period, the villages enjoyed autonomy and were governed by the panchayats, which exercised administrative and judicial powers. The village bodies, which received a setback under the Muslim rule, almost disappeared in the old form under the British, confining their authority only to the social life of the village community. The annexation of territory and over-centralization of administration during the early British period brought about total extinction of traditional institution of local self-government in India. We find that in the time of Rig Veda, evidences suggest that the self-governing village bodies called sabhas existed, which passage of time these bodies became panchayats, and panchayats were functional institutions of the grassroots governance in every village. The village panchayat or elected council had large powers, both executive and judicial, but during the Mughal rule, casteism and feudalistic system of governance came into existence, and new class of feudal chiefs, the revenue collectors known as jamadars, emerged between the ruler and the people, and so began the stagnation of decline of self-government villages. Mahajans were even appointed as mediators. The establishment of British court system in 1775 marked the erosion of community-based indigenous dispute resolution mechanism in India. But the events of 1857, however, had an eye-opening and softening influence on British rulers, and the subsequent years saw numerous steps being taken for decentralization and to usher in local government in the rural and the urban areas. And in CPC also, we find that not only there is provision of a regular civil suit, as it was every time urge of the human being to resolve the suit at the earliest, there is a provision of filing a summary suit under Order 37. But in that order also, there is a provision for leave to appeal also. And wherever the leave to appeal is granted, the procedure is to be followed as a regular suit, which definitely caused the delay. And because of the traditional thoughts of the advocates, which now gradually changes because of the Mahatma Gandhi's, like Mahatma Gandhi, as we know that Mahatma Gandhi has said once that I realized that the true fiction of a liar was to unite parties. A large part of my time during the 20th year of my 20 years of my practice as a lawyer was occupied in bringing out a private compromise of hundreds of cases. I lost nothing, thereby not even money, certainly not my soul, unquote. It is also well said that Sardar Patel was the best mediator who, without any war, without any coercion, without any force, has agreed the rulers of more than 500 princely states to join the Indian territory, to sign the accession to the Indian territory. Now, this is the general discussion. With respect to the financial disputes, another effort was made by the state for early resolution of disputes and speedy disposal of the claim cases, and DRTs and DRATs were established under the Recovery Debt and Bankruptcy Act 1993 with the specific objective of providing expeditious adjudication and recovery of debts due to banks and financial institutions. But with the passage of the time, after 28 years, high courts are back to square one, being asked to deal with the debt recovery matters, as these DRTs are non-functional because of huge vacancies. Presiding officers, as per Deshpande's committee report, presiding officers of DRT should not have more than 30 cases on board on any given date, and there should not be more than 800 cases pending before it at any given point of time. However, at present, each DRT has at least a few thousand cases at any given point of time. Though DRTs and DRATs have certainly speeded up the process of recovery, and they have fallen short of expected level, particularly in the banking and financial sector where time is money. Phenomenon of case management and ADR is sweeping the globe, particularly in the insurance, banking and financial sector, because of the delay in the disposal of cases, not only in civil courts, but in DRTs and DRATs. It is said that time and tide waits for none. Therefore, there is no better time and opportunity than the present to deliberate about the case management and ADR, and particularly through mediation. Because if this trend of delaying the disposal of the suit is allowed to continue unhacked, the banking sector will be affected immediately, which through a cascading effect will ultimately lead to further reduction in budgetary support for not for the judiciary, but all constructive works for which the state is responsible as a welfare state. And we will reach in the worst situation. And therefore, advent of ADR is required to be invoked more and more in case of financial institutions, banks, and insurance cases. And India has, fortunately, the current ecosystem and preparedness has been very promising. For instance, RBI released an ODR policy, online dispute resolution policy for digital payments. MSME sector saw the introduction of Samadhan portal, and Department of Legal Affairs is in process of collecting the detail of ODR service providers across the country. And therefore, lastly, I will conclude that skillful mediators can minimize the risk of unsuccessful results and preserve value for all parties involved. A skillful mediator can present creative and realistic solution and remove as much emotion and irrationality from the equation as possible. As a challenger, a mediator can balance each party's expectation and encourage objective thinking in reaching a resolution that is acceptable for all those involved. The mediator can also emphasize to each party the immense cost of alternative litigation would present in reaching what in the end should be a compromise. And with aforesaid my views, I think that for developing and training the mediators and encouraging the parties for mediation, such conferences are required to be scheduled very quickly. And I congratulate the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, and Delhi School of Public Policy and Grievances, Institution of Eminence, University of Delhi, and also Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, Supreme Court of India, for organizing this third international conference on mediation. And I hope that the goal shall be achieved by such, for which this conference is being organized. And we should remember why I quoted the history, because someone may say that why should we go to the history? History tells us what were we, what we gained, what we lost, and all old is not the gold. Similarly, all of the West is not the best. We have to churn, and we have to keep our in mind that we were Shresht. Why I am using word Shresht, not superior? Because superior may be taken as a superiority complex. India never remain in superiority complex, but we always feel and we were always Shresht, and in this field also we have to prove our Shreshtha, not superiority. Shreshtha means that knowledge to all. Therefore, we have to lead the entire world. With these words, I will close my words. Thank you very much. I thanks to all organizers to consider me appropriate person for delivering such views. And it was for the first time on this topic I have talked, and thank you very much for again to all organizers.
Thank you, Your Lordship, for your valuable opinions. Thank you for highlighting how mediation was an essential mode of dispute resolution in ancient India and how the role of mediation is evolving in modern India, especially in insurance and banking sector. Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Gunjan Gupta ma'am to share concluding remarks and propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dhananjay. I am extremely elated to have been a witness to such an informative session that was laden with practical knowledge and multifaceted view over this new, contemporary, and crucial matter. I would like to thank all the honorable speakers for sharing such insightful and important factors pertaining to the issue, which is indeed a growing field in the legal sphere. I thank Dr. Ranjeet Mehta ji. Although it was a last moment invitation, Dr. Ranjeet Mehta still managed to grace the occasion, the session, sharing his valuable inputs. He highlighted that the judiciary initiated the technology and its usage during the pandemic. He also rightly mentioned that dispute avoidance and dispute content is also included in mediation process. The ease of doing business and mediation, they are closely related. He provided with the statistics. He stated that we stand at 163 position, including, he also mentioned that the online dispute resolution mechanism has many challenges. They being one, that is lack of digital infrastructure. Secondly, the transparency issues. Sir, we must look forward to resolve these pertinent issues as highlighted by you. Thank you, sir, once again. Now I would thank Shri Vikramjeet Banerjee, who further pointed out that litigation is time consuming and mediation a feasible alternative to this problem. The lack of consistency in court decisions causes the difficulties in the business. He mentioned that in mediation, the flow of business is usually not disputed or disrupted. It is more flexible. He also rightly pointed out that the solution in business is never in black and white. So in exploring the gray areas, mediation becomes very, very important. He also mentioned that the cross-border transactions as well as can be carried on much more smoothly. The fact that the legislature is also recognizing these mechanisms highlights its importance. He also stated that the banking and insurance ombudsman schemes are becoming very successful. The Lok Adalats are very useful for banking and insurance companies to get an interface with the consumers. It is like an elephant in the room. In business, it is essential that dispute resolution should not only be flexible, friendly, faster, solution-oriented. So these advantages which he pointed out are very, very important for the business. Even in insolvency, bankruptcy, court proceedings, we can explore the possibilities of mediation as it is not a foolproof and can lead to litigation. Very importantly, in case of small business or individual matters, insolvency and bankruptcy court might look into mediation since it requires greater flexibility. Both large organizations and at individual consumer level, propagating a win-win situation. As a mode of justice delivery system, it is very important, and in this regard, mediation gives a feasible answer. Thank you so much, Vikramjeet ji. We are highly indebted to you for sharing your inputs and taking out, sparing time for us for this session. In case of Honorable Justice Venkateswarlu Nimagada, although he states that although the schedule was shared at the last moment, sir actually enlightened us with experience and knowledge what he possessed. Sir, I'm very thankful to you. He very rightly pointed out that the mediation must be extended to Tier B and Tier C cities. At present, majority metro cities are exploring these opportunities, but given its scope and importance, it is definitely essential to enlarge its scope across the length and breadth of the country. Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Venkateswarlu Nimagada ji. And it is absolutely true that the process of mediation is definitely gaining momentum with the passing day in the banking, insurance, and financial sector. It gives a scope of resolving the dispute amicably, primarily because of the consent factor, and exists as a precondition of the process. As very rightly pointed out by Honorable Mr. Justice Vivek Singh Thakurji, that it is a voluntary process. It allows considerable flexibility in achieving mutually beneficial outcomes, and the private nature of the proceedings can facilitate swift resolution. There is no doubt that the success of mediation largely depends on the skill and the technique of the mediator. Typically, a mediator dealing with banking and financial matters must possess both mediation expertise as well as financial services and or credit market expertise. Moreover, it is also a process that helps in holding the rule of law. He further pointed out the relevance of mediation by pointing out instances from Mahabharata and Ramayana. Hence, it is not a new concept in India. Rather, the concept was in existence since time immemorial. Thus, selecting the apt mediator becomes crucial. I thank you, sir, for sparing precious time from your busy schedule and being a part of the session with us. However, before concluding the session, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the organizers of the conference for organizing such an important session and give all of us an opportunity to deliberate on such issues, which might not always be a part of the class discussions that we academicians mostly engage into. I would like to deeply thank all the speakers of the day for sharing their valuable time and knowledge and with this and share their practical experience on field developments regarding the growing implementation of mediation proceedings in the financial sector. I would also like to thank the technical team of the conference for their impeccable support and help. And last but not the least, I thank all the participants for being a part of this session and hope that all of you have gained a lot from these illuminating lectures. With this, I would like to declare the end of this session. Thank you all once again. Over to you, Dhananjay.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. The insights shared by the panelists have truly been thought-provoking and informative. Again, thank you all of you for making this session a huge success. I would like to thank Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, Supreme Court of India as our knowledge partner. I wish everyone a great day ahead. With this, the session comes to an end, and I request all the participants to fill the feedback form available in the chat box. Kindly note that filling the feedback form is a mandatory requirement for certificates. Thank you and have a nice day.